side. I welcome you all to the grand finals of Parlance 2023. Congratulations to both teams for making it to grand finals. All right, with that, I request the other judges to please introduce themselves.
Hello everyone, this is Janvi Sharma. My pronoun she and her. I'm the panelist for this round. All the best, guys.
Hey Kunal, he, him, all the best.
Hello, congratulations for making this so far. I'm Mehek. I'll be the panelist for this round, and all the best for this round.
Hi, Simran here. Good luck for this debate.
Hi, I'm Bhaskar Agarwal, member of the CAP. All the best for the round.
Hi, Ishita, capping Shade pronouns, all the best.
All right. Also, will it be possible for any OC member to share their screen for the timer?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, perfect. With that, I invite Prime Minister to begin the substantive case from side prop first. Here.
Cool. Give me like 15 seconds. Has the recording been started? Varun wants to know. Cool. Rijal going as the PM, no preferred gender pronouns, POI via chat. I'll probably take one. I do not know Adiraj. Can anybody confirm his recording if recording has started? Thank you. Okay. No. Cool. Sorry for the interruptions. Cool. I'll be starting in three, two, one. Start. Panel first clarificate. The stopwatch hasn't started for me.
Hi, can I can I ask the speaker how he will like his personal information? I couldn't hear him. Sorry.
Via chat, just write POI.
Any specific time bracket?
No. Just drop it in chat. I'll take it when I can. Cool. Okay.
Okay, meanwhile, Swarupa figures out whatever the problem is. I can share my screen and we can proceed.
Yeah, lovely. Anything works. My phone is just discharged और मैं कहीं timer रख नहीं सकता.
I hope the screen is visible. The speaker can start whenever you like.
Okay, cool, lovely. Okay, yeah, I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1, start. Two clarifications right off the bat. A, the person is extremely poor. The quality of life of this person is extremely bad. I'll tell you why in my subsequent speech, but also we tell you that poverty is something that is incremental but also goes ahead and destroys your capacity of life. But also secondly, we need to understand this is an actor's motion, i.e. we give you incentives, op gives you incentives. But also something that you need to note in an actor's motion is the preference of those incentives at all points of time. Even if op gives you incentives, we tell you that the preferences also lie on our side. And why is that the case? Firstly, we think that poverty destroys your quality of life. Why? A, in terms of economic opportunities, your economic opportunities are non-existent, or at all points of time, we can even believe that these economic opportunities are invisible in nature. You do not have any kind of economic opportunities. If you did not have to worry about food at your table at all points of time. When that is the case, I think you do not have any exposure to the outside world, but you have the exposure to responsibilities that lie on you by being a part of the societal structure, i.e. if you are a parent, your children lie on you. If you are a child, your parents lie on you. When that is the case, you have to constantly worry about education, you have to constantly worry about marriages in your family, etc. But secondly, we need to understand that what prescribes any amount of quality to your life. We think that something that prescribes any amount of value to your life is the activities, is the kind of activities that you engage in, is the kind of life that you live. Why? We tell you that this person, by the virtue of being extremely poor, has limited exposure to quality living. But you know about the existence of these things. The example being, you know about that good food exists, you know that good cinema exists, but you cannot go ahead and indulge in them at all points of time. I.e., I may know about debating, I may know about the pleasures of debating, but I will never be able to go ahead and indulge in a debating tournament because I will never have the economic money or like to go ahead and indulge in debating. When that is the case, I think your quality of life is extremely bad. Because you cannot go ahead and indulge in activities that ascribe some amount of value to your life. But also thirdly, we think your social relationships often also decide the quality of life that you are living. I think these social relationships are likely to be bad. Why is that the case? A, in your immediate family, if you are the breadwinner, I think your family goes ahead and lies on you for at all points of time. When that is the case, I think there exists some kind of resentment that, hey, why do they not earn enough? Why did they not focus on their studies? Why did they not go ahead and do this job when they were told to? But also secondly, even if you are not the breadwinner, I think you also have resentment towards your parents because they did not go ahead and like earn for you enough. Even if that is not the case, we think that your parents or you do not have enough time to go ahead and indulge in these social relationships in the first place because you are in constant worry of earning bread, of going ahead and having a good quality life. When that is the case, I think we tell you that your social relationships are bad. Even your relationships with your friends might also be bad, because to go ahead and have a healthy friendship or healthy relationship, you need to indulge in activities that friends actually do. You do not have money to do that. You do not have any kind of opportunities to do that. When that is the case, I do not understand the kind of social life that they are living, i.e. the quality of life is also bad in terms of social relationships. But also fourthly, we tell you the moment you are poor, there is this constant threat to dignity by the virtue of you being poor. Why is that the case? If you are poor, you are likely to face microaggressions at all points of time. What that looks like is Salman Khan going ahead and driving his vehicle over the poor people who were living on the bus stands of Bandra because they could not go ahead and have any amount of home to live in. But also, I think there exists large amount of mistreatment existent in the society because these people go ahead and treat you badly. These people go ahead and treat you like they treat you like cockroaches in CUS because you do not wear good clothes, because you do not go ahead and contribute a lot to the economy. When that is the case, I think the quality of life is also bad because of the kind of like interaction you have with the society. The society goes ahead and considers you scum. When that is the case, I think we prove to you why the quality of life is bad. But also, secondly, I think since your quality of life is so bad, the only thing that you think about now is where to get food, how to sustain yourself, how to sustain the lives of your family. Now, on our side, you get an escape. In that escape, there is an assured quality of life. When that is the case, I think you are likely to go ahead and take that assurance, likely to go ahead and prefer that. When that is the case, I think we win the debate now, but I'll also be extremely comparative. POI.
You talked about how poor people are treated like scum in society, but there also exists a degree of sympathy for them. How do you dismiss this degree of sympathy entirely?
I sympathize with poor people, but I cannot go ahead and give them a place in my home, i.e., their lives will always be bad, even if I sympathize with them. But also, the problem is the amount of harm that you can do to them the moment you are aggressive to them. I.e., if two people are aggressive to me, but 98 people are like go ahead and sympathize with me, the problem is that these two people, when they go ahead and treat me badly, I will face those microaggressions. These 98 people will not be available to me at all points of time to go ahead and stop these microaggressions in the first place, i.e., the microaggressions are always assured, the microaggressions are always constant. Now, for the opposition side to win the debate, they have to prove to me why this person values their life over this assured quality of life. We tell you that is not the case. For 4 points of analysis to that. A, we think that a lot of people with constant worries in their lives, a lot of people who do not know how to live, who do not know what kind of direction that they are going to, often go ahead and indulge in consuming substances because they do not have any amount of worry. They constantly go ahead and indulge in substances again and again. They have this no worry of life. When that is the case, I think we tell you that people who have this constant worry often have no value to their life, but only the idea of escaping from this kind of life that they are living. When that is the case, I think our side stands. But also, secondly, we think that poor people go ahead and actively take up jobs that have that are with bad quality or that assure you bad quality of living. Why? Because something like mining, etc. Why? Because you have no worry of your life, and you go ahead and indulge in activities that are economic activities that are not really of any amount of quality in your life. Why is that the case? Because we think that hunger is devastating. It overtakes your rationality. Hunger goes ahead and takes away any kind of rational amount of thought that you can have. It goes ahead and overpowers it, and it goes ahead and leads you to go ahead and take decisions that might also be antithetical to your own quality of life, to your own life. When that is the case, I do not think this person values the life. But also, see, we think that people who lack resources often go ahead and also indulge in criminal activities without any amount of worry to their life. Why is that the case? Because these people want to escape this poverty. These people want to escape this life that they are living. That is, they go ahead and indulge in criminal activities with no threat to worry of their life because, oh, they will be present. But also, lastly, we think that this person has no reference point at all. This person has never seen happiness. This person has never seen any amount of quality in their life, i.e., they do not know what a good life looks like. All they know is a bad life, so they do not value their life, i.e., this person is always likely to go ahead and opt for a better life at all points of time. That is why we win the debate. Thank you, panel.
I thank the Prime Minister for that very fine speech. Hello, whenever you're ready.
Hello, please give me 10 seconds.
All right.
Okay, my name is Meher, preferred pronouns she, her, POI, as and when I ask for it. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Oh, give me a home where the buffaloes roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word and the skies are not cloudy all day. Today, we side opposition are here to prove that the need for material needs is not as great as the constant risk of having you and your near and dear ones constantly walk on eggshells, constantly live in a state of caution. Of course, as defined by Gov, this is an actor motion and the only stakeholder are ourselves. But what Side Gov has failed to note is the fact that the hand to mouth existence could be a temporary phrase, but the life threatening war is constant. Now, what does life threatening war look like? In a life of material abundance, you wake up to the finest breakfast, but you have to eat it with a pit in your stomach. Although you are enjoy say Although you're enjoying, say, the finest eggs benedict and ham for breakfast, you still have to be on your toes while military planes are dropping bombs in your neighborhood. Is it possible to enjoy any aspect of human existence in such a cacophonic state? Life threatening war implies that there is a palpable tension in the air. There are violent conflicts around you constantly. There's constant policing of you and your family's behavior. There is damage to infrastructure and human life. There's a constant fear for your family, say threat of nuclear war or even threat of armed violent uprising at any point in time. Now, what does a hand to mouth existence look like? Certainly not a picture that the government has painted. The government has painted a wrong picture that hunger is going to cloud your judgment. But what they don't realize, that a hand to mouth existence means that you have food for the next day. There is food on the table. Yes, it is not the best state to live in the sense there's a lot of tension as to how your future looks, but at the very least you're able to have enough food to get by. And also they've compared this existence to cockroaches in the sewers, which is not wrong. All a hand to mouth existence mean is that you're getting by the bare minimum, not a grandiose way to live, but the bare extreme bare minimum. Okay, and today's side op will present our case in two arguments. Our first claim being that living in a constant state of war is worse than living in a state of poverty, and our second argument being that hand to mouth existence is temporary as compared to the constant threat of war. Going back to our first argument, living in a constant state of war is worse than living in a state of poverty. That is our claim. What is our mechanism? A great deal of personal satisfaction comes from positive interaction with friends and family, even in a state of poverty. This is because of the vast majority of human beings that have lived through history in the state of poverty. The full benefits of material abundance also need to be on a baseline level of personal safety. Tell me if you can enjoy your car knowing that it could get blown up at the next second. There is that block ceiling that comes to mind that simply prevents you from enjoying the material wealth. And what use is this material wealth anymore? Also, there's a chance you might not even wake up tomorrow. When it comes to choosing between their life and material needs, human beings choose life because we as humans have a baseline survival instinct. Our state of poverty on earth, however suffering it might entail, is also mitigated by the fact that government, NGOs, and our own personal social network can help us in times of trouble. There exists absolutely none of these safety meshes on the alternative planet. And also, okay, if you make this choice for yourself, well and good, but you're also dooming your near and dear ones because they can no longer return to earth. And the individual has to live with this guilt, knowing that not only they have made this decision for themselves, they have also coerced other people, their near and dear ones, into permanently staying on this cesspool of an alternative planet where life is reduced to being in that constant state of caution, not knowing whether you'll even make it to the next second or not. What is our impact? Anything that goes wrong on the alternative planet will be a direct result of you placing you and your family in harm's way with no recourse as available to you. This means, trigger warning, somebody could die of sexual assault, and your personal guilt will be immensely greater. Not only are you making the choice for yourself, but you're also making the choice for others. Why is this exclusive? Why does this only happen on their side? Because only in this case are you actively making a one way trip to the planet. You know for sure that there is a great deal of violence too, where you cannot take recourse and where there is no safety at all. Well, at least while on staying on earth, at least you are not subjecting your own descendants to your irreversible choices. On our side of the house, we have the exclusive benefit of mental satisfaction that comes with lower but relatively safe baseline existence with the future chance, even if remote, which is reverting from the state of poverty. Our second argument is that a hand to mouth existence is temporary as compared to the constant threat of war. Our mechanism, it is the war is life threatening, and it takes an immense amount of uh, immense amount of mental toll on your life, and it's settling down on that planet itself is going to take years and years together. But with poverty, there is a scope to work your way out. Look at this simply on the grounds of probability. If we prove to you that there's a small chance of getting out of poverty as compared to the chance that war might not end and someone else might die, that is enough for us to win today's debate. This is safe to assume that there is some degree of welfare state which it is safe to assume that there is some degree of welfare state which provides you subsidized resources like education and healthcare, which can help you climb the social and economic ladder. Can side government prove that this is there in their world where there is a constant state of war? This provides a necessary cushion to how some household this provides a necessary cushion and how some of our current household income could be spent elsewhere in the future. Our impact, you don't feel stressed working on for your family to that degree. You derive a degree of satisfaction knowing that what you are doing is not going to completely disappear tomorrow. Exclusivity. So even if you struggle to make a transition in the worst case, the satisfaction of breaking out of this im- means that you can still send your kid to school, you can have food on the table every day, you can do your job, and you are not plaguing other people to on living a subpar life which is just adorned with material wealth which you cannot even make complete use of. And with that, I would like to conclude my speech. Proud to oppose.
I thank the LO for that very fine speech. Now inviting DPM.
Checking if this is clearly audible, visible.
Yep, you're visible and audible both.
Fair enough. I do some hand signs while debating, and yes, I कुछ जो भी emoji आया वो आता रहता है. Please ignore that. Varun going as the DPM. But also, before I start my debate, since this is being recorded, I would like to give a couple of shout outs. Firstly, to Adiraj and Rachel, who's sitting here. Thank you for carrying me. But secondarily, we are also having our own tournament in the background. So, massive shout out to the entire KMC Depsoft, the second years for managing the OC world, the first years for actively.
Oh,
keeping
Varun,
up
you're
the
so
tradition.
cute.
It's being recorded. Shut up. With all of that aside, starting speech panel 3, 2, 1. First of all, if there exists a life-threatening war on the other planet, that means that there exists a society on the other planet. Because if there don't exist any people, who is having a war and who is threatening your life in the first place? So, like, common sense. But secondarily, let's first shape something, right? They say that this is an incentives debate. We say this is an incentives debate. This is an actors debate. So incentives become the most important gospel truth. On that, we need to recognize how there are two things that largely shape the way you act. First is incentive, and the second is preferences. Preferences is something that are not necessarily always rational, but have a precedence in shaping the way you make decisions. An intuition from here is I have an incentive to be very successful in life, but I also have an incentive to be a good debater. What then do I do on my Sunday? Do I study for a UPSC exam, or do I come to my college, waste the entire day debating? I come to college and waste the entire day debating because my preference aligned with the latter incentive that I had. But then what shapes your preferences? Your preferences are largely shaped by your past experiences or your most recent experiences in and of itself, which means that if I had a bad day yesterday, I am much more likely to be able to be wanting to enjoy today. That will be my preference, which means that I will come to KMC to debate in and of itself. This becomes important because this person is living a hand-to-mouth life, which means that every yesterday for this person has been particularly sad and particularly depraved, and they haven't had like really enjoyed themselves in their life for however many years they have existed in the first place in and of itself. At all those points of time, I don't understand why this person will have any awareness or any consideration for the welfare system or the welfare society essentially existing in the first place in and of itself. But beyond that, before I come to my constructives, I want to be comparative and take down LO and all of the op case that might exist. Let's do a comparative analysis of what are the threats on either side. They say that on our side of the house, this person will have a very bad life because it's like walking on eggshells and stuff like that. That I don't think is very true because of one reason: symmetricity. On their side of the house, when this person is living a very depraved life, the threat is very, very certain. Because guess what? If you're not earning by the end of the day and you're living hand to mouth, notice this is hand to mouth, not poor. Hand to mouth means that if you don't go to your dihadi today, you don't have anything to eat today evening. That is exactly what hand to mouth means, which essentially means that the threat or the proximity of threat is much, much higher on their side of the house, and it is actively being felt every other day. On our side of the house, there is a risk. It might happen, it might not happen. If it doesn't happen, I'm probably having a steak and wine for dinner and I'm very happy. But it might also happen, and if that happens, I die. But on their side of the house, you actively suffer every other day. Why is Arman here? But on their side of the house, you actively suffer every other day in and of itself. But secondarily, since you're talking about tomorrow's, this entire idea about the threat of tomorrow and how you perceive your life in and of itself. Firstly, you still have a threat of tomorrow on our side of the house, because even if I'm super charitable and I let them skew the definition and I say that sure, this person is now probably not hand to mouth in and of itself, even if this person is incredibly poor, that means that this person has no savings, which means that at all points of time they are at the mercy of the way economy is. How is it disrespectful? This is my speech, but which means that at all points of time this person is very, very worried about how he might last tomorrow, because this person does not have a very solid economic backing, which means that if the COVID crisis were to break out tomorrow, or the government was to declare a lockdown tomorrow, or anything was to happen tomorrow, probably the 2008 financial crisis was to happen tomorrow, or any economic shock which is beyond my control was to happen tomorrow, I will actively suffer to a great tangible degree, which means that I always have this threat of tomorrow that they say exists exclusively on side government, because there is a life-threatening war. Life is at all points of time threatened on opposition too, because this person is super, super poor, which essentially means that even firstly they're hand to mouth, but even if I let you skew that, they're not hand to mouth, they have no savings in and of itself, which means that they're at the mercy of the global economy in and of itself, which they have no control over, which means that threat is symmetric. That at that point of time, I don't understand what that argument is. But secondarily, your threat is also very, like, how do I say, exclusive or existing in and of itself. The timer has stopped. Can you like reshare it? It stopped at 4. Yeah, I think so. I'll give. Yeah, no, no, I don't want a timer. I want to stop watch of 3 minutes. Yeah, yeah, I'll do a countdown again. So I'll do a countdown. 3, 2, 1, start. But secondarily, the second reason why you still have a threat of tomorrow is because you have no social capital, which means that if anyone harms you, you do not have assured legal backing in and of itself. This is exactly what Rijul establishes by his example of how people sleeping at a footpath essentially lost their lives in a night time, and they had no like social capital, which essentially ensured them justice or anything else in the first place. But secondarily, we do not at any points of time tell you that this person is largely or exclusively motivated by only economic gains or economic things in the first place in and of itself. We tell you that this person will press the button because guess what? Even if this person gets a car to drive and the planet gets bombed yesterday, and the planet gets bombed tomorrow, this person at least had a car to drive. On our side of the house, this person has been living a depraved life in and of itself. They never had that car to drive, so they will press that burst button because their preferences align with it. And even if they die day after tomorrow, they are anyways okay with it because guess what? At least that one day they enjoyed on our side of the house, and that one day is absolutely lacking on their side of the house. At that point of time, I don't understand why this person will let go of all these preferences and not press the button. But before I give you more incentives, POIs if any.
Yes, I have a POI. Please explain how not eating a day is closer to death as compared to stepping on a landmine when you go out for a walk on your side of the world. How is our side of the world closer to death?
Fair. I got it. It says there is a threat of life, like threatening war, which means that you might step on a landmine, you might not step on a landmine. Which means that on government side you might or might not face the harm, but on your side of the house you actively face that harm every day and night, because guess what? All the points about social dignity being worse off, all the points about your family not having very cordial relationships, all the points about you essentially being at the mercy of the rich people is extremely like it's like felt on a daily basis and an increased frequency on side opposition in and of itself. But secondarily, notice how on our side of the house this person has a capacity to improve. On their side of the house, because this person is living a hand to mouth life, this person has absolutely no capacity to improve their life, which means that they have absolutely no motivation or aspirational value. Because guess what? In order to improve your economic standing, you probably need better education. You probably need the advantage of, you probably need some investments or stuff like that, because that is how the economy operates. This person does not have the resources, which means that this person is guaranteed a depraving, sad, bokha life all of their lives on side opposition in and of itself. But secondarily, social relations are comparatively better on our side of the house, because on our side of the house, you go to a land which has abundant resources, which means that on our side of the house, development and growth is not a zero-sum game. I don't have to gain resources at the expense of Adiraj or Rijul, which means that me, Adiraj and Rijul could all have the same amount of resources. At that point of time, there exists absolutely no ground for disparages between us, or like any amount of discord. Because every person who is rich essentially feels this sense of pride because they achieve things at the cost of everyone else, which means that they not only that dignity is threatened, but social life is something that's still exclusively better on our side of the house. But secondarily, even if people are like sympathetic or empathetic or like very kind to these poor people, that is not a life worth living, because you then as a poor person are always at the mercy of the oppressor. You are always at the mercy of how your employer might treat you or how a random stranger on the road might treat you. Your dignity is always hinging on that fact in and of itself. On our side of the house, that is not the case. You have that certainty. At a point in time when the threat of tomorrow exists, at a point in time when you always have lived a sad and unhappy life, at a point in time when your dignity is always challenged and your relations with your family are not bad, I think it's worth it. Even if this person dies day after tomorrow, they would want to drive this car because they've never had it, and all the harms they've felt nonetheless. So competitive advantage, easy captain. Thank you.
I thank the DPM for that very fine speech. Now inviting DLO.
Anish going as DLO, prefer pronounce he, they. I'll start my speech in exactly 30 seconds. I'll just get some water. I'll be starting my speech in 1 second. What's this? Yeah, POI preferences. So POI, I would love to take it at 5, but if I don't take it by 5, 5:30, just like drop POI in the chat by 5. If I don't take it by 5, just feel free to just unmute by 5:50. 5:50, yeah, 5:50 works. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, we think Gov is being extremely uncharitable. Apparently, our world is the one where hand to mouth means you're literally dying of hunger if you eat food. Now you don't have food for the dinner. Like, but on their side, somehow it's just you having all these resources, but you may or may not die, right? We don't think if that's the case, there is no debate to be had at all. We think it's a very uncomparative and uncharitable burden that they're trying to push on us. We think the binary is simple, right? Which is on our side of the house, or on our side of the house, there's some possibility of social mobility. Whether or not we achieve it is up to debate. But secondly, on their side of life-threatening actually means that there is a possibility of someone dying. There's a possibility, there's literally violent conflicts going around you in a war-stricken area. That's something which they refuse to acknowledge and something which they've been very uncharitable about throughout their 2 speeches. It's too late at Gov. I'll be doing 3 things in the speech. Firstly, 3 areas of responses to side government. Secondly, and I'm going to look at our case and their responses to it. Finally, I'm going to weigh these metrics out to you, tell you why we still win this debate, right? So firstly, some on direct refutation. They had 3 areas. Firstly, they tell us that poverty is just some incredible, like really bad thing, because A, you have to worry about 100 different things about education, so on and so forth. B, that you actually know about these worldly pleasures but can't access it like debating. And 3, that you'll probably turn to a life of crime. I have 3 responses to this. Firstly, we think a lot of things which they talked about, things like education, things like healthcare, are often already subsidized by state in status quo itself. If status quo is the world is escaping from, these resources are available to them in status quo, which means your kid can still go to a government school where education is almost free, or healthcare or is greatly subsidized, or like, you know, you have some degree of access to healthcare and some degree of access to like rations which like exist in status quo, right? So you living from food to mouth mean that you have enough resources to fill your stomach for a particular day, but there's a struggle for like, you know, having to provide for the next day perhaps. I think this is like a charitable definition to go with. Secondly, we think that the pleasures they talk about play out in a couple of ways on the other side. Firstly, we think that these pleasures often serve as a great sense of satisfaction or purpose, right? Which is on their side of the house. I think on our side of the house, the passion or purpose of wanting to achieve such greatness, wanting to get out of this particular thing so that you could, like, your kid could go debate at tournaments, or that you would probably buy the house of your dreams, is a great motivator for people, and it's a very positive motivator opposed to a negative motivator, right? But B, I don't know why if I'm living in poverty, my first thought which pops into my head is, oh bro, I have to go to this debating tournament tomorrow, right? I don't think the way in which people's mind when they are in poverty often, like, as they consider, is often like towards surviving the next day, means that these pleasures are often something which they aren't too much stressed about, or rather content with about, because they're working towards something, but doesn't mean that they feel too bad about not getting it. Thirdly, we think that in terms of like criminal activity, right? We think that's insane. If you have a family to support, why is your first thought in your head is, God, I'm going to take up, like, I'm going to go rob someone, I'm going to like steal something, right? Because if you go to jail, who's taking care of your family, right? But I think on the comparative, however, you are definitely going to have to take up a gun to protect your family, because death is imminent. You may or may not die. You may or may not step on a landmine, which means that you have to take up some sort of resort, have some sort of alliance with someone who could provide you some sort of security, which could be moral, immoral, which you have to justify to your kids who you grew up teaching them that violence is something which is inherently wrong, right? So I think this area is inherently far worse on their side of the house. Secondly, on social relationships, like, dude, seriously, we know that there are people on like the Washington planet, but if your constant life is that death, do you have time, or is your mind coherent enough to have a social relationship, right? I think that's a premise of what Meha's argument were. So instead of strawmanning or laughing at it, I think if they could give us a response, is that something great. So insofar as you're living this constant threat of life, which may or may not happen, you don't know whom to trust, you don't know who's your friend, who's your enemy in the scenario, then this point of the house, the social relationships you have and value significantly go down. Secondly, you leave behind your friends on earth, you leave behind your children's friends, you leave behind your wife's family, so on and so, or your spouse's family, so on and so forth. You have to justify the cost of all these social relationships which you lose once you leave earth, because the social relationship you had already in your life so far exists on earth, not in the worst chicken place where you're in right now. Thirdly, on microaggression, right? A couple of areas of responses here. We think people are more sympathetic than they like are in like aggressive in status quo, right? Which is to say that even though if I'm working as like a worker in a house help at a particular house in India, I'm likely to get things like Diwali bonuses, Pongal bonuses, water, and so on and so forth, which because people inherently want to be perceived as good and not perceived as bad, they are more likely to act this way. So in terms of likelihood, you're more likely to receive sympathy as opposed to receive microaggressions in the first place. Secondly, where is microaggressions worse? In a place like Taliban, where they're constantly questioning your identity, are constantly like, you resource-rich person in a wash-chicken place, like that's exactly when microaggression is going to be far worse. Because now you are the person with resources, while in a wash-chicken place where others are suffering, right? I think that's incredibly bad, because people don't want you to be this only person with great amount of resources on their side of the house. That's inherently harmful for them. Done with responses, moving on to our case. POI before that. POI, quick.
Hi. At all points of time, sympathy cannot be seen as an objective good. In the sense, people look at you with pity. I don't get why people pitying me is nice. This is literally ableist.
Dude, you literally consider the fact that nothing is more important for me than putting food for my family, sending my kid to school, buying stuff necessary for them. So if my employer is giving me a Diwali bonus for pity, I'm taking it. I don't care that it's pity, because the satisfaction I receive by seeing that happiness on my son's face is far greater. Okay, cool. Why is living in a life of war something inherently so bad? I think this is important, right? Because their arguments were premised on the fact that you are able to enjoy this life in war, which they are life at threat, and the resources which you have right now. If you can prove to you that you can't enjoy the resources you have, they think the arguments they have collapses in its entirety. Why is this true? Firstly, we think that this may or may not die concept, which their DPM so nonchalantly talks about, is very powerful, right? This looks like a sleepless nights, knowing whether or not knowing whether you would wake up in the morning. This looks like probably mental health illnesses like PTSD from witnessing something horrible, because a life-threatening war means there are probably violent conflicts around you. You have to justify to your son what he saw that day, like people dying, these violent graphic images which exist right in front of your eye, right? And the fact that you mentally don't know or don't know whether you live to see another day is inherently bad. I much rather would like live in poverty as opposed to not, like, like have this constant mental agony which is weighing down on me while I'm eating my piece of bread or wearing these fancy clothes I have right now. Secondly, we think that the probability of death is far greater on their side, right? Which is in a life, like you have a constant incentive to somehow an ability to put food on your table, as opposed to you may or may not have a missile fall on you. So insofar as this mobility is concerned, on our side of the house, we are significantly better off. So for these reasons and many more, we stand proud to oppose.
Thanking DLO for that very fine speech. Now inviting our whip.
30 seconds.
Hi, Gavip, please
Hey,
start.
yeah. Could someone please confirm if I am both audible and visible?
Yep, you're both audible and visible.
Cool. Hi, brilliant. Yeah. Adhirat Singh, government whip, he, they pronouns. Uh, with regards to POIs, yeah, put it up in the chat anytime you want, however many you want. Just write it down in the chat. Uh, cool. Yes, before I start my speech, quick shout outs to a few people. Firstly, to Rajul and Varun, great teammates, have been carrying me all across this tournament. Love them to death. Secondly, obviously to my juniors who have been pulling off a lot of background shit, but also thirdly to a lot of KMC seniors who are A, still here listening to me, but B, have literally made me who I am today. So yeah, fair. Hmm. Starting my speech on a self count of three, two, one, start. Let's settle characterizations. Considering that DLO has a lot of problem with what's charitable and what's not charitable. Firstly, let's see if they're charitable in nature, in the sense that, note, literally read the context slide. It says risk of a life-threatening war. I am unsure why they constantly assume that this war is already happening. If you go there, you might step on a landmine. It is so visceral, war is so bad. Yeah, at a point of time, you have to prove that this war is likely in nature. They cannot go ahead and assume in this debate that this war will definitely happen, because if it does, then yeah, that's unfair in nature. We've been treating them charitably in the sense that even if it happens, but they have never proven that. So yeah, Varun was actually charitable. I won't be that. But then again, let's deal with this major idea in terms of as to how hand to mouth works. At a point of time, note as to how they deal with this in two responses at deputy. A, you get subsidized shit, but B, the idea of sympathy exists. Note then, A, with regards to subsidized shit existing. Of course, we understand that health and let's say rations and all of that are subsidized for poor people. However, they have to prove the likelihood of this person having access to it, because if this access is easy, you are not hand to mouth. You are hand to mouth because you're literally a person who has to work a daily dihadi. If you don't do so, it's a larger possibility of you not getting food. That is literally what hand to mouth means. They cannot go ahead and assume that a bare minimum will be easily achieved. You have to work daily for it. That's the literal idea of hand to mouth. A. But then B, the second dealing that they would do is the idea of sympathy, which is literally the only constructive that runs from PM speech, which is LO speech. Let's deal with this idea. A, they claim that people are super sympathetic with regards to poor people. So this looks like you have bosses giving Diwali bonuses and stuff like that. A, I am unsure why bosses are such benevolent actors, but B, as to why these poor people actually get this much sympathy that they actually are able to accrue economic benefits out of it so massively. Because if this was the case, I am unsure why so many poor people still continue to exist as poor anyway at all points of time. But B, I am unsure why you are so hand to mouth, because at all points of time, if people are sympathetic to you and literally giving you economic benefits like bonuses all the time with regards to Diwalis and shit, how are you hand to mouth then? I am unsure why then this is not uncharitable. But then let's deal with the last idea that they put out at all points of time, which is social relationships and social upliftment. I think if we do that, we're largely winning the debate because they never deal with our shit anyway, but then we'll weigh out post this as well. Let's deal with social relationships. They claim that, listen, this is so bad because you leave your friends behind. They have to prove two things. One, even if you're hand to mouth and have to work daily to just ensure this particular living, how are you able to give times to your friend and family anyway? Literally the framing that we run on ritual. That is, at all points of time, if this timing is still so off, your social relationships do not matter as much as filling your fucking stomach. But then again, two, note as to how at all points of time, I am unsure why this person is so social in the current world, but goes to the another world and cannot make new friends. Like, bro, what? At all points of time, don't note then, I am unsure as to why social relationships, thirdly, even matter so much in this debate at all cases. But then let's take about the idea of social upliftment. Note then, Gov at all points of time cannot assume the possibility of social upliftment just because by saying that, no, you have to, it's uncharitable. They have to prove the likelihood of this actor getting social upliftment, because social upliftment is an impact. It's not a frame. If social upliftment is an impact that they claim, they have to prove the likelihood of it. If they have to prove the likelihood of it, they don't do so. But simultaneously, what have we already done for you in multiple cases? We've established that you are hand to mouth. If you are hand to mouth, this basically means that A, you have less time to invest in terms of taking your social upliftment, because all you can do is actually get just food on the table. B, you have no savings, because if you do, you're not hand to mouth. C, I don't think you have other avenues of investment by virtue of not having savings and not having time, because if you do, you are not hand to mouth. Please deal with all of these ideas. This is something that you cannot do on op, because yeah, you have 7. But then again, with regards to all of these ideas existing, let's deal with the most important piece of weighing in this debate, which is the idea of constant state of risk versus this idea that you are able to actually escape poverty. But then before I do that, of course, Ganesh, go ahead.
Would you rather live in current state Syria and Ukraine with resources, or would you live in India in poverty?
The problem with that POI is you're not in a current state of hysteria. There is a risk that it will become Ukraine. It is not Ukraine as of now. But then, two, note as to how you still will not, even if that is the case, the question is, would you rather be a rich, super rich ass person in Ukraine living out there? Or the question is, would you be poor? So note then, A, rich people have a larger ambit of escaping all of such stuff. They're not people who are constantly out there on front lines. But B, note as to why the most important piece actually comes from ELO. Because the ELO questions that what use of a car if it can blow away at any time. Issue is, this grants you supreme bliss, euphoria, and social validation. Why is that the case? Because you never had a car before. You never had this experience before. You, as this unique actor, have seen the viscerality of poverty, but not any other aspect. So you will literally ignore every other aspect at the expense of actually going ahead and guaranteeing food every day, guaranteeing a good life every day. You're going from not having food and working hard for it to get dal chawal to eating steaks every day. That's largely the difference in the scenario. So note then, certainty of impacts, you do guarantee food. Certainty of impacts, the war is not certain. There is a risk attached. But then note, this poverty is also something that they treat nonchalantly. Because no, it's not just food. The whole hysteria of trying to get to food every day is also massive. War, I am unsure why that hysteria is so massive. But then lastly, note as to how at all points of time, when they claim the only thing then that is left at op on a comparative is, yeah, bro, you might live sleepless nights at Gov's paradigm. Yes, but are these sleepless nights exclusive? Because even you are sleepless, you have to constantly see if you're able to get enough food tomorrow, then the next day, then the next day. At all points of time, your family sees this, they suffer. You see it, they suffer. Social relationships all exist. But lastly, never dealt with the idea of the reference point, of the dignity of life, of social family, etc. And I have taken down their case to a very large extent. Panel, press the fucking button.
I thank the Gov for that very fine speech. Now inviting Opvip.
Please give me 30 seconds.
All right.
All right, okay. Uh, my name is Tarang Rathi. I shall be going as opposition whip. My pronouns are he, him. You can drop any and all points of information in the chat. I will address them at my convenience. If I am not audible at any time, please let me know or let my teammates know. All right, I will begin my speech in three, two, one. All right, to begin with, let's talk about preferences because because the government, and it is clear that this is an actor-based motion, so we have to explain incentives and preferences. So let's talk about preferences. Now, they tell you that you as a person have never known a good life, and that is why you will prefer irrationally, however, you will prefer however much irrational that preference might be, you will prefer to press the button and go to the alternative planet. What they ignore is that you as a person have also been living until the current moment in time. You have gone through life as a poor person and have continued living. So you are giving us an implicit recognition of the value of life, even if that life is marred by hardship. Therefore, telling us that the preference for survival and the basic human instinct for to live another day will suddenly now be flipped because you have a greater chance of material abundance, because you have greater material abundance, is completely irrational. Next, they tell you that preferences are irrational. We agree, preferences are very much irrational. Why then can people not hold out an irrational hope for wealth in the future, even if they are poor in the present context? Next, we come to characterization. The speaker before me said that a constant risk of life threatening war does not in and of itself mean that war will always be there. Sure, we grant you that. But that doesn't mean that you are not in a state of anticipating war and violence all the fucking time. That is the point. You live in a state of anxiety because you know that war might happen at any time. And it's not as if this is a minor consequence. Even once, if war breaks out, your child could end up dead. How is that not way, way worse for your mental satisfaction than maybe not having avocados on toast every single day? That is one. Second, they told you that living a hand to mouth existence implies that you have absolutely no resources in the current concept. This is simply false. Hand to mouth existence simply means that an individual does not have enough wealth to accumulate the capital that they need so that they can permanently escape the cycle of poverty. What we are telling you is that a hand to mouth existence means that with enough help you are tipped over the line of survival. You might not be rich in your life, but you still live every day with a decent chance of making it to the next day. And simply ignoring the existence of government safety nets by NGOs, of a personal social network that you have built up since the day you were born, and as a result of your parents and your other family's social relationships, is completely irrational. Next, now I'm going to tell you how. So those were the clashes when it came to characterization. So we once again submit that the government is completely mischaracterizing the motion to set the debate on a very uncharitable plane. So that's one. Now we talk about economic life and economic mobility. We tell you that a baseline level of existence is assured because you have continued living up to this point in time. That means there is at least some degree of availability of economic opportunities through which you can secure a subsistence existence, which means that you can at least make it to the next day, if not the best quality of life. Also, there is a possibility of economic mobility. Panel, I ask you, have you ever heard of one single person and his family stopping an entire war? No, you haven't. But have you ever heard of one single person and their family climbing out of poverty? Yes, you have. The likelihood that you will escape poverty, even if it is very unlikely in and of itself, is still greater than the constant risk of war and the constant risk of having to live with a mental state where you're anticipating the death or worse of your loved ones and yourself. That's one. Also, then they talked about social life, and there's a bunch of points here. Number one, they said that your family will be resentful because, yeah, you couldn't give them the best quality of life. Please tell me, where would your family be more resentful? Where they know that even if you couldn't provide them with the best quality of life, you tried your best, and that in the future they will have the chance to come across their own economic opportunities, and if not you, your children can escape poverty. Where would they be more resentful, in that situation or in the situation where you knowingly actively transported them to a planet from which there is no escape, from where there are no pre-established social safety nets when you go there, where where there is a constant risk of losing your life, after which nothing matters? Once you've lost your life, no economic benefit can even possibly make it to this debate, because who is this economic benefit accruing to? Who is that mental satisfaction accruing to? Who is the satisfaction of being rich for the first time in your life accruing to? You have lost your life. These impacts fall flat on their face because you live with the constant anxiety of anticipating violence, and in some cases you might actually end up dead. So that's one. Where would family be more resentful? We tell you that family will be more resentful on their side of the house. Next, they tell you that the alternative planet will have no economic competition, and this is why you will have because there are abundant material resources, a good social life can also be guaranteed on that count. We tell you that this doesn't matter, because if economic competition was the only way, if economic competition is why people become resentful of each other, or why they harm each other, or why they don't have fruitful relationships in the first place, this planet would not be in a constant risk of life threatening war. The whole point is that despite having material abundance, it is still at a constant risk of being a violent place. How can social relationships be built in a violent place, in a hostile environment where everybody is expecting to die, or everybody is expected to kill the other person in that environment? They tell you that a person who was so social in our world can also go to the other world and establish social relationships there. This is first of all, you have existing relationships from your childhood onwards that cannot be replaced. You have family links that go back generations that simply can't be replicated. Second, it is, as I said, harder to form relationships in an environment that is so hostile, and that deprives you of the mental peace and the satisfaction that is needed for friendship to occur in the first place. So on all of these metrics, we told you how even if there is not an assurance that you will die, there is still the reasonable anticipation that you or your loved ones will die a very gruesome death. And there is also a baseline level of existence that is secured on Earth. So we told you that characterization is unfair. We also told you how in economic life, you have you have a possibility of social mobility. We told you how social life you're better off. We told you how in terms of personal safety you're better off, and we told you how in preferences you will still choose our option. So very proud to oppose.
I thank the operator for that very fine speech. Op reply whenever you're ready.
Uh, I'll be starting my speech. 1 second. Right. Cool. I'll be starting my speech in, where is it? 1 second. I'll get a timer for myself because I'll be using a Google Document. Okay, I'll be starting in 3, 2. Panel, let's get out of this debate bubble we're existing right now. Imagine you are this person. If I give you the choice to go live in a place where war could break out anytime and put the lives of yourself and your family at risk, or you could stay back, live, though life is hard for you, you could somehow try to make out of it. Any time of the day, 9 out of 10 times you're choosing to stay back in a world, because at the very existence of us as human beings, we would never want to put ourselves and the lives of our family at even a remote possibility of risk. That's something which is intrinsic to us. That's something which is human nature. That's why we think at the very outside, when Tarang tells you that this is what this debate is about, we take it. There are 2 questions in this speech. Firstly, what does this life, like foot and mouth life and the war-stricken life, actually look like? Secondly, what are the impacts flowing from both of these lives? Firstly, let's clarify a little bit about what this debate should have actually been about, right? We think this side government has been incredibly uncharitable to us the entirety, right? We think foot to mouth is reasonable to assume that you have enough to just get by each day, right? You still get by each day. It's not that your very survivability at its very core is in question, but though it's a struggle to survive every day. We think there are 2 different things which government doesn't quite understand. But secondly, their only response to all our arguments have been that, you know what, Ganesh, at the end of the day, it's just that war might break out. It's not, you're not living in war itself. We think that's still, like we pointed out, that's still like problematic for a couple of reasons, right? Which that when you are the Meher tells you right at the end outset of a speech that a situation where war could break out still looks like things like at a threat of a nuclear war existing, a state of emergency, things like a violent surroundings where you don't know whom to trust because the situation around you is just so volatile. You don't know when the first act of aggression is going to come. I think that's still a characteristics which they have to deal with. It's not a nonchalant life where the people say, fuck it, we ball if the war like a rocket hits us, right? We think that's not the life which side government can get away with debating in this debate. Secondly, let's talk about the most crucial impacts on either side of the house and weigh it up for you. Look, at the very core, side opposition, side government's harms were a couple, which was that you're gonna not able to self-actualize because you won't be able, poverty in itself like depreciating. You fall into like worse relationships. You worry about different things. while not having that safety net of resources in of itself, right? I think on the contrary, they also need to consider a life wherein there is some degree of threat which exists around you. So if we weigh these things out to you based on the things which team tells you, I think we conveniently take down that argument way better, right? We tell you that even if the premise on survivability is better this way, which is when we tell you that on our side of the house, at least there are basic resources like government programs which exist, which means your kid goes to school, you get subsidized access to these things because status quo is what we're defining at the end of the day. Means that on our side, survivability is greater as opposed to on their side. If at all a war breaks down, then you will feel guilty about putting not only yourself but your entire family at risk because you were the one who chose to press that button. Secondly, in terms of self-actualization as well, you are incredibly guilty now for leaving people behind and making this choice unilaterally for your entire family. Your family's people are left behind. You don't have a concept of a social relationship in a hostile environment. At this point of time, we think that at this point of time, the ability to like when humans are instinct is to survive, right? And when human instinct is to steer off trouble as much as possible, that struggle is put into positive effect, as I tell you in my DLO speech, where you're trying to grow, mobilize up the social ladder by working hard. Probably your son gets educated, and so on and so forth, where you have a purpose or passion in your life. However, what that struggle or survivability looks like on your side is constantly trying to make sure your home is safe enough for your kids, make constantly living in the struggle, like struggle to make sure that your kid comes back from school because war could break out any moment. So police barricades all around your house surrounding is probably a state of emergency and chaos which is existing, which means you don't get a minute of sleep as a person. At the moment you lose sleep, you've lost this debate.
I thank the speaker for that very fine speech. Cover reply whenever you're ready.
Cool. Rachel going as the reply. I'll be starting in three, two, one, start. Panel, when I start the debate with the idea of you having a bad life, I do not mean that where the life would be better. This is never a comparative. The idea is that you have no reference point as to what a good life looks like, i.e., at every point of time, I assure you that there will be food on your plate. You will always choose to have food on your plate. Doesn't matter the consequences. But also, secondly, I do not understand why this threat of war is so hostile, why this land looks so hostile. Because if you saw bombs dropping, if you saw mines being set, there is no comparative. You will never choose to go into that world. The threat of war means that war could happen at any time. The war is not happening at this point of time. But I do not why they go ahead and always talk about, hey, there is purpose on our side. I think for you to have a purpose, you should have time to go ahead and think about a purpose. I do not have time to think about a purpose because I do not have food on my plate. I do not have any economic opportunity. All I care about is waking up the next day, doing my dihadi and getting food on my plate. But also, notice how opposition never contests my framing as to how you do not care about your life because you have no reference point as to what a good life looks like in the first place. You only value things that you wish, that you cherish. I do not understand as to why does this person cherish their life in the first place in the opposition side. When that is the case, I do not understand why this person goes ahead and values this life to such an extent. But also, secondly, their only response is that there exists a propensity of social or economic mobility. This is slow. Winning lotteries are a 1 in a million chance. But in a normal scenario, this takes generations. This looks like your kid going ahead and having education, getting a job and pushing you to lower middle class, then their kid getting an education and then pushing you to upper middle class. I do not understand why this person who has a hungry stomach would care about this 80 years of generational social mobility. But also, lastly, we tell you that our case is extremely simple. The another world is always comparatively better. Why? Because on our best case, you make friends, you can indulge in things you always wanted, and you lead a good life. And of course, we are of course better. But also, secondly, even on our worst case, you die the next day. But for once in your life, you could feed yourself and sleep without a constant worry about your life and the lives of others close to you. When the reference point is destitution, people throwing slurs and beating you up for being poor, this is always better because I have my needs met, because my family is having their needs met. On their best case, I do not have friends here, or I live in fear in this another world. I never knew what friends were. I never knew what a great life was. I do not understand why you go ahead and care about your life so much. I do not understand why you go ahead and care about losing your friends so much. They tell you that this person won't be irrational. The only mech being that this person cares about their families, this person cares about their life. Humans are known to be irrational when in times of desperation. This is what I tell you in my first piece. This is what I frame for you. They never contest it. If it was not the case, people wouldn't flock to streets against authoritative regimes. Bhagat Singh wouldn't have ever pulled the trigger. No person would ever steal bread. No person would have ever enlisted in the army if the promise of a better life was not better than the current life that they are living. People do this because the promise of a better life is always better than the kind of destitution that this person is living in, that the kind of authoritative regime that this person is living in. The idea is because there is guilt. There is the idea that what if I pushed that button and my children never had to go to bed hungry, and I could tell them that I loved them as opposed to seeing them as a burden, as an economic burden on me. If that is the case, I will always choose to have a life which goes ahead and promises me that my basic needs will be fulfilled, that my parents will be fed, that my children will be fed, that I will be fed at all points of time, even if I die the next day. Thank you, panel. Proud to propose.
I thank the speaker for that very fine speech. With this, we come to an end of an excellent debate. Good luck to both teams for the results. Also, requesting the judges to please DM me on Discord your verdicts and finally the speaker as well.